Welcome to Megabucks Radio. Conversations with successful entrepreneurs, sharing their tips and strategies for success. Real-world ideas that can put megabucks in your bank account. Here's your host, Nina Hirschberger.
Hello to today's call. I'm honored to have Doug Bertram on the call with me today. Doug is a doctor of Chinese medicine, also known as a practitioner. Before we got on this call, Doug and I were chatting for a few minutes, and I said, oh, my goodness, you have moved all over the country. Looks like he was born in Wisconsin. He's now in Maryland, but he was in Colorado and California and all different places. So he is quite a traveler. So welcome to today's call, Doug.
Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Why I asked him to be on this radio podcast is he started out as a massage therapist and then went back to school and got some enhanced training, and he now has what he calls a structural element approach to health, which I'll want him to explain, but the primary purpose of what we're going to be chatting about today is Doug has done some really creative and innovative kind of things in his own practice that has grown it and done things that many, many people don't understand and don't do. So, Doug, let's start out. Tell us about what structural element approach is and how you got there. And so give us a little background.
Sure. Well, I can kind of start with our current clinics right now, and we call them orthopedic wellness clinics. So structural elements is an orthopedic wellness approach, and we primarily are focusing on improving the structural health and relationships within the body. So we say that we analyze, balance, and apply. And what I mean by that is the name structural elements has a bit of an engineering kind of ring to it. And a lot of people, when we first opened up, thought that we were either an architecture firm or an engineering firm. And we wear that like a badge because it's exactly how we view the body. We view ourselves as body engineers. And I always say, you don't want to wait to bring in an engineer to examine a bridge, once cars have ended up in the Pacific Ocean, right? You want to bring in an engineer and make sure it's safe for cars to drive across that bridge. And we view the body as the same way. You don't want to wait until you are in pain or requiring surgical intervention to have somebody look at where there is compromise to the structures of the body. So we like to bring people in preventatively and quantify the mechanical stress within their body and try to align the body before they are experiencing mechanical failure. And so I'm like you said, I'm a Chinese medicine practitioner. We have chiropractors. We have an orthopedic surgeon on staff. We have, physical therapists, occupational therapists, athletic trainers, massage therapists, but we all practice structural elements. We all view the body through the same lens. And you mentioned kind of how I got there. And, I was fortunate enough to know what I wanted to do young. And I had a very forward-thinking track coach when I was in high school that while all my friends were going off to college, he recommended, why don't you take a year, go to massage school, develop a skilled trade that is in the occupation field that you want to go into, and that would give you the opportunity to work making a decent living while pursuing higher education, but also really explore different environments to, really hone in on what the environment that you want to work in. So I just thought that was brilliant, and I did just that. So I just turned 45, so I've been standing over a table for a long time.
Well, you registered the term structural elements. So it's a register. It's something that must be unique to you.
That is correct. So we have a proprietary system of how we analyze the body, and we specifically are triangulating off of bony landmarks to look for rotations in the pelvis, to look at deviations of the spine, any sort of changes to the alignment of the lower legs or the hind foot. But then what we really hang our hat on as proprietary is we've mapped out throughout the body where something called a focal adhesion, which is a change in the connective tissue, where those focal adhesions have formed systemically throughout the body. And that is something that we've mapped out and we can teach in a short amount of time for another provider to be able to see those systemic compensations that have formed in response to a mechanical collapse. And that is, unique to us, right? And how we treat it, again, depends on the scope of practice of the provider. But we do a combination of modalities. But the term structural elements, it is a registered mark. It is, what we refer to as structural elements, either the DTR or the structural elements treatment. DTR is our version of deep tissue restoration or deep tissue massage. And we also have what we call the SE Lab, which is where we learn and apply balance. So for us, that if we could boil everything we do down to one word, and it's balance, right? We're trying to balance the body for those mechanical efficiencies.
Okay, so it sounds like, so what we're going to do is we're going to segue into how did you become so much more successful. Then let's start with, other massage therapists, let's say. So would it be fair to say that part of it is you decided you were going to really create something unique, something proprietary? Was that part of your success, or let's talk about that.
Yeah, so there are a few pillars that I think we could focus on that I think are foundational for the success of any business, not just, complementary and alternative medicine or orthopedic wellness. But the first and foremost thing to grow a business, responsibly and successfully is you have to have a passion for what you do. Right. It starts with really loving what you do or seeing an opportunity to make a difference in people's lives. And so for me, I started as an athlete that had some pretty devastating injuries to a young athlete. And it was my experience working with a therapist that got me back to doing what I love to do, that really set the hook for me as saying, wow, this really made an impact in my life, and I really want to make an impact in other people's lives in a similar fashion. So first, that you're trying not just to make a buck, but that you're trying to make a difference. And so for me, that can look a lot of different ways, but I think it's a pillar to being able to scale something in a meaningful way.
Okay, so you got to have a passion.
Yeah, you got to have a passion. The other thing is you have to have a good product, right? You can be really passionate about something that just doesn't work, and it's just not going to go very far, right? So developing a good product. And I think one of the things that I did early was to differentiate myself is I really dove deep into continuing education. I was a complete nerd. I took every opportunity to read as many books and attend as many conferences and just learn from people that have been doing it longer, right? And so instead of, thinking that I would have all the answers internally, I sought advice, and I still do all the time from people that have been doing it longer, and whether that is, clinicians that have been working with patients longer, or specialists that just see more of a certain type of condition, or even down to, my current board of directors now. I have found the smartest people in each field that I have been able to convince to spend time with me on my board, to keep the guardrails on our business plan. So, I think that the fact that the product has to work really comes from, doing your homework and doing your diligence and making sure that you're putting your best foot forward. So, okay. So the other piece that I think is critical is I don't like the word sales. Okay, sales is something that to me has an icky connotation to it, right? When you feel like you're being sold to, and somebody's trying to sell you something, they're trying to convince you that you need something that you're not necessarily convinced that it's. So I like the word education instead of sales. And there's been a lot of successful companies. Like one that comes to mind is like Lululemon, the athleisure apparel brand. They view their floor staff as educators, right? They're educating people about products so that they can make an informed decision. they're not trying to sell them, yoga pants, right? They're educating them about the passion that they have about how good their products are, and it's worked very well to their advantage. So I never have a problem in marketing myself or in, generating leads or patient acquisition, because I am completely confident that I have something that is of value that I want to educate people about, that it is available to them, that they don't have to suffer, that a solution does exist that they may not have known about. And the more that I can educate them about their body and about how important it is that the body is treated as a whole system and not just a series of parts, it starts to make a lot of sense to people. And they start to think about their bodies differently, and they start to prioritize their health in a different way. And that leads people, then the phone starts to ring, and, then your wait list starts to get long, because you're not selling people on your services. You're educating them about what's available to them. So that's really important for me. And in terms of how to spread that word, the other pillar for me in terms of a growth strategy is you have to identify key influencers. And so for me, when and like you mentioned, I've moved around a lot, right? And I've practiced in 7 different cities now in my career. And some of that has been chasing, my educational path. And then some of that has been, getting married and starting a family and, kind of moving close to, where my wife's from. And so I've had to start and stop practices several times now. But the first thing that I do when I get to a new city is I identify who are the key influencers. And for what I do in my field, as an orthopedic wellness provider, my key influencers are individuals that have access to my patient demographic, right? So personal trainers, the golf pro at a country club, a tennis instructor, looking at a health coach or, yoga instructor, and finding those people that already have access to a demographic of people and educating them first so that they become the spokespeople on my or on our practice's behalf. And that does the legwork for you, because as effective as it is to educate instead of sell, it's even more effective to have somebody else educate on your behalf and have that testimonial from a trusted source, from a key influencer that people are already looking to be guided of what is good information and who the good people are to see.
So let's not go on beyond any more of those. I want to know, so what do you do to educate those key influencers?
So the first and foremost thing is you have to go and put in face time. You have to build a relationship. And nobody likes to be sold to, and so it's all about inviting them in. Right? Not going and dropping off business cards and saying, hey, do you mind handing out my business cards to all of the people that you train? But is to say, hey, I would love to show you around the clinic of what we have built. I'd love to take you out to lunch. I'd love to, invite you to an informative talk. I would love to come in and do a free educational presentation to your staff, so that you have to give them value. You have to invite them in. And if you do that, then they see that you are offering them something of value, that you're not asking a favor, right? But it's all about building the relationship, right? And it has to be authentic. You have to find people and connect with them on a human-to-human level, not just on a business-to-business level. And for those key influencers, it's key to also find ways that you can benefit their business as well, right? It can't just be a one-side thing where you're going to go in and say, hey, I really want you to promote my practice, but hey, how are some ways that I could also help you grow and I can help promote your business with my patient base? It's got to be a two-way street.
Okay, give me some ideas. How do you do that?
Yeah, so again, it's a little bit more difficult in today's world because people are a little less open to just having people drop by, right, because of all the COVID precautions. But certainly social media still is a powerful tool. If if I am going to reach out to, say, a personal trainer, I am first going to like their page on Facebook. I am then going to like posts that they make. And then in the comments section of a post, I'm going to tag them and say, at so-and-so, it looks like, we really see eye to eye. I would love to, find a time to get together and chat further, outside of this format, right? Or can we take this conversation offline? It looks like we have a lot to talk about. So social media is a powerful tool to use in that regard. But even with, today's precautions, I mean, imagine that getting a handwritten letter in the mail that says, I've heard really good things about what you're doing. I would love to find a time to chat and give you more information about how we could help keep your clients healthy and in this time, right? You have to put the effort in. And here's the formula that I think that there is no substitute for. You have to start with the end in mind. How many patients, I'm going to use patients because that's what I do, okay? But this could apply to any business. If it's a restaurant, how many patrons do you want to serve, okay? And in my opinion, if you want to see 40 patients a week, let's say, that's 40 hours a week that you're going to be working. If you are only working 20 hours a week seeing patients, you have to spend the other 20 hours a week promoting your business. There is no substitute. If you are not as busy as you want to be, it doesn't mean that you get to take a nap in the middle of the day. It doesn't mean that you get to squeeze in, an extra long walk. If you're going to take that extra long walk, invite somebody who's a key influencer along with you to chat them up. You have to put in the 40 hours. There's no shortcuts to it, right? And slowly but surely, you will start seeing patients during those 40 hours, and your marketing hours will become 10 as you see 30 patients, and then your marketing hours will become 5 as you're seeing 5 patients, or 35 patients. There's just no substitute to putting in the time.
So I want to go back to one thing you said is it's reciprocal. So you want to refer the patients that are in your clinic to those key influencers. Do you have a newsletter that you send out to patients? I mean, how do you refer back to those people?
Again, social media is a powerful tool. So one thing that we can do is just share posts from some of the other businesses that are kind of in our network, if you will, so that they end up being visible from the people that follow our page. So it's as simple as, the personal trainer that you're building a relationship with, article about, some good exercises for the low back, and you in your practice say, hey, that's, I agree with that. That's good information. All you have to do is hit the share button, and now that business is going to be promoted and be visible through your followers and on your channels. And that's really appreciated, when you post something and another business picks it up and shares it. It's effective. The other thing that's great to do is, again, I'm referring to my world, which is in the wellness sector, but I oftentimes look for opportunities to get other businesses involved in events. So if I'm going to do an open house, I'm going to invite them to have a table at my open house, right? I'm going to say we're going to put on a little health fair at Structural Elements, and I'm going to invite, the health coach, and I'm going to invite the personal trainer, and I'm going to invite the yoga teacher to put a little table up and to be able to promote their businesses within my business. And I'm going to, do that as a service to my patients so that they know all of the resources that are available in the community. We put together a little thing with local farmers, and we had a bunch of people come just to promote healthy food because, in our area here, we don't have, a Whole Foods, or we don't have a natural foods, co-op or anything here. We kind of have more conventional grocery stores. But in this area, it's where most of the food that goes down to the city is actually grown, and most of them have resources that you can, buy direct from them. So we put together a healthy food health fair and brought out all these other little local farmers and stuff to promote their businesses and let our patients know that healthy food is available to them. So it's things like that. You just have to think about how to include them.
So, Doug, do you have a director of marketing in your practice? Are you the person who does all the marketing? How does that work?
So we have used outside agencies to do a lot of our graphic work and to keep track of a lot of our analytics and metrics. But our core team, we all wear a lot of hats, so I, as the CEO, I sit on the social media task force. As the CEO, I sit on the financial committee. As the CEO, I sit on our, in on our marketing meetings, on our education platform. I mean, so, we both use, inside and outside resources. But again, here's kind of the kick in the pants is that there is a direct inverse curve. The things that cost the most are pretty much the least effective. But when the things that cost the least usually have the most traction. And what I mean by that is going out and building relationships doesn't have to cost anything. And word of mouth and referrals from people that have had a good experience in your business are the absolute most effective, cheapest form of marketing. Into ad placements or billboard campaigns or, place in expensive ads in magazines, those all cost the most and have the least return. Absolutely,
totally, 100% agree. So it's kind of like, shoestring marketing, or what is it? So let's get some specifics. Do you have a marketing calendar that you've got in your office? You talked about having a marketing committee, education committee, different ones, but you have so you know exactly what you're going to be. And we're not talking about billboards. We're not talking about radio ads. We're not talking, because those are very expensive. I'm sensing you're probably not doing very much of that, or if you are, you're doing less and less of that. So do you have a calendar?
We do, absolutely. We have a year-long spreadsheet that has a monthly theme that we use both for educating, because again, I said we're a franchise, so we have numerous therapists that are in our system, and so within the system, we have an educational theme every month that we're teaching all of the therapists in the system, and then we use those same themes to break down to talk to our different audiences and our different demographics. And so when I say audiences and demographics, we have, patient acquisition, we have promoting getting new therapists into our system. We have promoting getting new franchisees into our system. Those are all different, demographics. Those are all different messages. But even though we have a central theme, we can talk to each of those populations specifically. And that changes based on the platform that we're using. It changes based on the type of language that we're using. We might go more general if we are looking at patient facing, but we may go a little bit more medical if we're going at practitioner facing. So, but we have those platforms as to what messaging, what images, what we're going to, how we're going to talk about that theme on each of the platforms mapped out ahead of time, as well as events that we're going to coincide, as well as marketing collateral, meaning any sort of digital ads or any sort of print materials that we're going to use in the clinics or anything like that to echo the message that we're doing on social or on our larger marketing efforts.
Okay, we're going to step back because I think maybe I didn't get something very quite clear. So you actually have a physical location there in Maryland where you go in every day and you practice and you have patients and you have people in that location. But then what you've done is you've said, I've really got something here. I'm going to franchise it. And so now you have another part of your business, which is a franchise part. So your location there in Maryland is kind of like a living laboratory where you test concepts, test thoughts, test educational things, test strategies, and then you roll it out to your franchisees. Am I saying all that right? Yep,
you hit the nail on the head there. So we are the the beachhead, headquarters, or we were the first structural elements clinic here in Maryland, and then we became a franchisor, and we've opened up additional clinics, and then you have the ability to, as a therapist, to work in what is a shared cost clinical environment, or as a business owner, you can own a clinic that leases space, turnkey ready space to healthcare providers. So those offerings, while they are completely symbiotic, they are multi-tiered. We also have what we call the SE Network Provider, which allows somebody just to benefit from our educational platform and our business practice management solutions, but work in one of our brick-and-mortar clinics. So that is subscription-based, that any provider can subscribe to and benefit from the education and a lot of the marketing and the practice management solutions.
So in the marketing world, we would call that kind of a swipe file thing. So in other words, you allow them to see behind the curtain to what it is you're doing and swipe those concepts to use in their own practice, no matter what that is.
That's correct. You got that right.
Okay.
Yeah, so the big difference,
Go ahead.
The big difference is when somebody is in our clinics, we do it for them. When somebody is just a network provider, we give them the roadmap of the how-to.
Okay. And now, how many franchisees do you have?
So because the franchisees are not just clinic owners, but we also, if somebody's working in a structural elements clinic, they're considered to be a micro franchisee as a therapist, right? We have dozens of those.
Okay. So if I go back, I'm going to summarize what I've heard. I've been taking notes. Starts out with a passion. You have to, no matter what, let's even say you're a restaurant owner. If you're not passionate about food, if you're not passionate about creating some really good product, it was the next thing you talked about, so good food, and then educating them. I mean, I think about even, because I'd like to apply the principles that you're talking about to other industries. So that's why I'm going to just pull the restaurant industry. So what could they do to be educating? I mean, it could be as simple as having something on the menu or something on the table that even educates them about the food that you're eating and where it's being harvested, or that it's all organic or whatever. I don't know about you, but I can't recall any kind of restaurant recently around here that I've had any kind of education on anything that I'm eating. That would be...
You're going to the wrong restaurants, in my opinion, then. One of my favorite restaurants, I'm just giving you a hard time, one of my favorite restaurants in our area is called the Wine Kitchen. And they come around to each table, and not only will they educate you about, wine pairings and but they'll educate you about what farm, the meat came from, or they'll educate you about the butter that you're putting on your bread, because it's, it's a special passion about supporting local businesses, about the celebration of food, about finding the perfect wine pairing, and it's like entertainment and a dining experience all wrapped up in one, because you're learning about the food and you take time to really taste it and enjoy it, and it's just such a wonderful dining experience, right? So, I think that no matter what the industry, you have to find out how to connect with your customer on that minutia level.
Yeah, that's brilliant. My number 4, you didn't say it, you didn't verbalize it, but I wrote it, and that's confidence. What I hear coming through in your voice is the confidence that these structural elements make a difference in somebody's life. So it's that confidence to be educating and not being small. I can see you standing up and that confidence coming through. Number 5 that I wrote down was the key influencers. Key to any business. Go back to the restaurant. What would the restaurant do for, working with key influencers? Could it be the person who writes about food in a local newspaper? A person who loves food in a particular community? So who are those people who could be helping to get the word out? Is that a fair?
Absolutely. I mean, even, don't even, limit it to just people in your own industry. In fact, think wide, right? I'm in the wellness industry and I just promoted a wine bar, right? So don't just think that because they're not in beverage isn't your key all day long, every day. And people ask me, hey, so, where is a good restaurant? I've got a special event coming up, or I know, you like wine, where should I go for a special occasion? And I'm in a position to talk them up all day long, so you have to think not just in your own industry, but in particular, where, and let me back up, because this is really an important differentiation here. You can only identify who has access to your demographic if you understand what your demographic is, right? So a lot of business owners, one of the biggest mistakes is they don't to pay attention and really learn the metrics of their own business to understand who their key demographic, who spends the most money, and who is the guts of their business and of their success. A lot of business owners don't take the time to really understand who those people are and don't track those metrics. Once you understand who those people are, you can create lookalike audiences on Facebook. You can find more of those people by marketing to that demographic. You can do, tools with, we use cell phone GPS technology to understand customer behaviors of where do they go before and after their treatment? How far do they drive? Do they walk there? Do they visit restaurants right after? Where do they go to shop at grocery stores? And we know our customers, right? So because we know our customers, we know our patients, we know where to find those other key influencers because we understand the demographics. And so if you don't know who your customer is, it's really hard to find another key influencer that has access to your population.
Well, and it sounds like you really are using the technology out there. It goes back to your learning, your thirst to learn and to be connected. So that's because a lot of business owners that I run into, during the pandemic, let's go back to the restaurant because, I felt so bad for them. You're right. I haven't, we're in a more rural area, so I haven't gone to any of those wine bars or anything. But, the bottom line is they didn't even have a list. So not only did they not know probably all about the demographics of their customer, they didn't even know their names. They didn't even know their emails. They didn't know their address. They knew nothing. So when the pandemic hit and they were closed, they couldn't even reach out to their customers.
Yep. Yeah, that is potentially a critical mistake of the business owner, is not getting and gathering data of who your customers are. And we have at least email addresses from everybody that we've ever connected with, and a newsletter that people can subscribe to, and we give text alerts to for patient for appointment reminders, but we can also do push notifications out if our hours change. Hey, we're closing early today because of this or that. So if you're going to stop by, please, know that we're going to be closed early. Notifying and staying in good communication with your customer base in today's world is an absolute necessity. There's no excuses not to, because we have so much access to technology that makes it virtually automated, right? And it's really not expensive, but it does take, if you don't know how to implement it, it takes, recognizing that and finding the people that do. And one of the great resources for that, it doesn't have to cost a lot of money, but college interns are an absolute wonderful resource for, data implementation and communication tools, because of that demographic, they are very versed in social media. They're very versed on what goes viral. They're very versed on what their attention spans could be short, so they know what they'll actually pay attention to versus what they have blinders on. So it doesn't have to be expensive, right? But it does have to happen.
Now, yeah, absolutely. College interns is a very, very good idea. But if you're, I'm going back to your wine bar, my guess is their demographic could be a little more older, mature demographic. And so they might have a little longer attention span. But the college interns understand technology, don't they? And they understand how to implement it.
Absolutely. Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
And again, a lot of them, they're looking to, for projects of how to change and shape industries, right? So it's a win-win.
Interesting. Okay, I'm going back down my list. So we stopped at understanding demographics and key influencers. The next thing you talked about, though, is it's not a one-way street. It's got to be a two-way street. So you've got to refer back to those key influencers, just like you're telling people, go to this wine bar, or this personal trainer is fabulous for that, whatever you got. So that's another thing. The next thing you talked about is put in the time. So you can't just sit around eating bonbons if, you only have 20 patients and you need 40 a week. And so put in the time.
There's no shortcut. And again, I've mentored in my industry, I've mentored a lot of therapists. And the ones that actually do it, that get out there and pound the pavement, I don't care if it's going to get your hair cut at the new hip salon, but making sure that you talk to them about what you do and about, how this is, great because, you're growing your business, so you probably have a lot of overlap. I mean, it can look a lot of different ways, but you have to put the time in. You have to come up with a plan of how to spend those hours. It can't just be sitting, at your desk waiting for the phone to ring.
So question, have you written a book?
I have not written a book, and only because we are a franchise, a lot of what people are paying me for is some of the proprietary information. So, I mean, I have operations manuals and marketing guides and, pre-opening guides and, all of the things that we have archived, our whole education platform, which is largely video-based. I've archived unbelievable volumes of information, but it has not been published.
Okay. So the next thing that I have written down here is you're all big about events. So you have this year-long marketing calendar, and you have themes every month. And so woven in that, I would suspect, is events. Do you do events every month?
Well, again, it's this year's been a little strange as far as events go. Historically, because we work with an active demographic, we have done a number of running races, bike races, CrossFit events, obstacle course races, and that has been a big part of our marketing and outreach. Is the events where we go and we set up at finish lines. We'll go and set up these recovery zones, and we'll take massage tables and we'll take foam rollers and massage tools, and we have these things called Normatec compression boots, and we have a big sprinter van that's all has all of our logos all over it and stuff, and we'll go and we'll do recovery zones at the end of these large races, put up all the flags and make ourselves very visible to our demographic. That is something that has been a big part of our culture, and it's not just about selling. It's about educating, and it's also about building community within the clinics and within the network of therapists. So that's a big part of our culture, which isn't necessarily just about monetizing the time spent that day, but it really is about kind of driving that passion of the community and of the corporate culture.
Wow, that's amazing. Doug, I am looking at the time, and we are just about out. I wanted to finish my list, and then I'm going to ask you if somebody wants to get a hold of you. Maybe they're even interested in, talking about a franchise opportunity. But here's the last things that I've listed here. One is a list. You have to know who your demographic is, and you've got to have them in some sort of a list. You talked about newsletters and texting. I sure would have loved to have gone down that road. You also talked about referrals and community building. So those were 12 things in this short amount of time that you just said, put in the time, because here it is. Here's the map to success. So if somebody does want to get a hold of you, if they want to hear more, then maybe they're listening to this in Maryland and they want to come to your clinic, or they're interested in perhaps doing some sort of exploring to your franchise. How can they best get a hold of you?
Yeah, so the website is the most complete in terms of one place where information lives, and that has links out to all of our social content and our blog as well. That's just www.structuralements.com, and then we have an info@structuralelements.com email address that's linked to the site. So if you have any comments or questions or are seeking any additional information, that will go directly to me and to our VP of Operations. So I'm still very hands-on with the business and with the inquiries that are coming in. And again, we're all about building relationships. So no question is too small to ask, and we will lay out all the information for you if you're interested in learning more about what some of the professional opportunities are within our system.
Well, thank you. Thank you for taking the time. I'm sure this is a busy day for you, and you stopped and you shared your knowledge and I truly appreciate it. Thank you so much, Doug.
Absolutely. It's been my pleasure.
So until next time, as Doug would say, go out and put in the time, because you can also be successful.
Thank you for listening to Megabucks Radio with Nina Hirschberger. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or to listen to past episodes, visit megabucksradio.com.